time out, Eylon, time out. I have a question for whoever wants to jump on it. Is Israel's war in Gaza making Israel more secure?
When this war began, Hamas had a fearsome missile arsenal that rained thousands of missiles on our cities. I had to keep running into a rocket shelter. Israel has now eliminated the threat of rocket fire from Gaza. It has cut off its smuggling routes. It has destroyed its missile silos, and it has destroyed Hamas's weapons capabilities. That alone has made us safer and makes it easier to sleep in our beds at night.
Eylon Levy strides into this debate with all the confidence of someone who thinks moral gymnastics should be an Olympic sport. He'll tell you that bombing Gaza makes Israel safer while ignoring that the fires of resentment only grow hotter with every strike. He'll flash outrage over Hamas crimes but dodges questions about Israel's own, as if war crimes are only bad when the other side commits them. So is this really about justice, or is Eylon just playing defense for a government that's burying diplomacy under the rubble of Gaza? And how does he explain using hostages as talking points while Netanyahu's action only seems to prolong the captivity? My name's Z. Welcome back to Z's Political Couch. Stick around because we're diving into these double standards, and trust me, it's about to get uncomfortable for Mr. Levy.
3 quick things. Number one, the Israelis went to Supreme Court recently and they were having an argument in Israel's Supreme Court, and they put in the official filing that we do not control Gaza. Even after all this time, Hamas is still in control of lots of parts of Gaza. So they say the honest stuff when you're not looking.
It's true.
Number two, I interviewed Ami Eylon recently, former head of Shin Bet, former Israeli admiral. He said very explicitly, Israel will not be safe until we give Palestinians freedom. This is his words, not my words. And number three, I'm glad you had a bomb shelter to protect you, because the Al-Dos family in Gaza did not have a bomb shelter to protect them.
Okay. Another question. We have not yet talked about the hostages, and we should. Is Israel's action in Gaza going to is it for the benefit of the hostages?
Absolutely. Israel is fighting to bring the hostages home while Hamas is starving and torturing and raping them. We managed in November, because Hamas was being clobbered and it wanted a breather. They released nearly half of the hostages. We've sent in special forces to rescue hostages in raids my opponent has condemned. Israel is fighting to put the military pressure on Hamas to release the hostages, but Hamas doesn't want to release the hostages. And the reason it doesn't want to release the hostages is that it knows that the longer this war goes on and the more suffering it generates among its own people in Gaza, the more it advances its own goal of isolating Israel. And Mr. Hasan, it pains me that you do not seem to realize the role that you play within Hamas's strategy when you deflect blame onto Israel. Never demand any accountability from the Hamas regime. When you know that Hamas's goal is to maximize suffering, you give it a reason to drag on this war. If you want it to let the hostages go, you should tell
of all the nonsense you've said tonight,
Hamas to free the hostages.
Of all the demonstrably untrue things you've said tonight, this is the big one. So apparently, if you want a deal to end the war, you're enabling Hamas's strategy.
No.
That's what you just said.
No,
I'm enabling Hamas's strategy.
But you have systematically undermined every leverage Israel has to free the hostages.
You know who's undermining?
Stop pretending
Can I answer the
about
question?
the hostages.
Of the two of us, hold on. Of the two of us, whose strategy has released more hostages, mine or yours? Because I supported a ceasefire. And we got, hold on.
Our strategy. Your strategy is to give cover for Hamas's war crimes.
Let him finish, please.
Over 100 hostages were released last November in the pause, in the ceasefire deal. A lot of Israelis wanted that to continue. Hostages' families wanted that to continue.
Yes.
Can I finish my answer? Netanyahu said no. In fact, I interviewed Zahiro Moore, whose uncle Avraham Munda was horribly killed in Gaza. Zahiro Moore, by the way, was arrested today. He's been arrested and attacked by the Israeli government that Eylon served in multiple times. He said to me, Netanyahu and the government that Eylon was part of, always choose the wrong way. Ever since October the 8th, everything they do is directed at not getting the hostages back. That is the plain truth. That is the nephew of a hostage. They don't want you to hear about the hostages. Eylon and people like Eylon use the hostages as political pawns. The hostages' families are standing on the streets of Tel Aviv opposing the Netanyahu government, calling for a ceasefire, calling for a deal. They don't like Eylon Levy. They don't support Eylon.
Mr. Hasan, how many hostage rallies have you spoken at? How many hostages' mothers have you embraced and hugged them and told them, I will here for you whatever you need? I was at Central Park. I was at Central Park last Sunday at the rally for the hostages. You were not. Mr. Hasan, if you really care about the hostages, I have a spare hostage pin here. If you want to show them you care, you're welcome to put it on your platform.
All right, this is fantastic. Let's go. So,
put it on. Show them you care. Show them you care. I am in daily contact with the hostage families. I tell them I will do whatever it takes to help you get your kids home. Show them you care and stop trying to exploit the hostages' suffering.
Eylon, allow him to respond. You've got your bit of stagecraft. Please take it.
Let's be clear. You saw the very, very performative outrage there from Eylon there. To be clear, don't you lecture me about hostages when your government has killed more hostages than it has rescued. That's on you. That's on you.
And that is on Hamas. That is on Hamas.
Let me answer this.
All right.
I need to finish this point.
I'm going to let you finish this point, and then we're moving on.
I will happily support this pin because I support the release of all the hostages and let me finish. And I support the release of thousands of Palestinian detainees being raped and tortured and children. Do you support that? Let's wear it together. Do you support the release? Do you support the release of Palestinians?
I do not support,
do you support
the release
of
terrorists.
Palestinian children? Do you support the release of Palestinian children being
Mr. Hasan,
tortured?
anyone who is...
Let's get some space here.
He can't answer the question.
Mr. Hasan, he won't put on the hostage.
I support the release of all innocent people.
Mehdi?
He doesn't. That's all you've got.
Once
Eylon.
again.
Gimmicks.
Once again.
All you've got.
All right. I have one more question before we pivot to some questions from some journalists who are joining us, and I want to talk about America's involvement in this situation. The U.S. has been largely supporting Israel. If the war in Israel is unjustified, that implicates the U.S. in an unjust war. If the war is justified, then we have an ally that requires our help. Which is it?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
We have, it's about U.S. involvement in the war. If the war is unjustified, that implicates the U.S. in an unjust war. If it's justified, we have an ally that requires our help.
When this war began, President Biden said that Israel is facing sheer, pure, unadulterated evil. It was so obvious in the moment of shock after October 7th that for Israel to defend itself, it has to dismantle the Hamas terror regime, that President Barack Obama said we must stand by our ally Israel as it dismantles Hamas. The United States has made valuable support to Israel in its goal of bringing down the Hamas regime. What we need is pressure on Hamas and its patrons, Qatar, Turkey, and Iran, to let the hostages go. That pressure has not been forthcoming.
I mean, before I came on stage, Gershon Baskin, who's Israel's most famous hostage negotiator, he WhatsApped me and said he's got a deal, 3-week deal on the table with Hamas that Hamas has agreed to release all the hostages and end the war. He says it's with Netanyahu. The ball's in Netanyahu's court. So when he keeps going on about hostages, tell him to speak to his former boss to agree to a hostage.
Gershon Baskin is the negotiator
as for the
in
United
whose
States,
deal to free Gilad
interrupting,
Shalit,
Eylon.
we released Yehia Sinwar.
As for the United States, it is tragic to me as a citizen of the United Kingdom and the United States that my two countries have armed Israel as it carries out what the ICJ has called a plausible genocide, as it arms a prime minister who is wanted for war crimes.
Mr. Hasan.
The ICC chief prosecutor has called for the arrest of Yoav Gallant and Benjamin Netanyahu. The American government should not be arming a man wanted for war crimes. And Eylon Levy should have began his speech tonight apologizing for working for a man who is wanted for war crimes by the ICC chief prosecutor.
Mr. Donner, you called me to account at the beginning of the debate and said I should not have called my opponent a liar. The former president of the ICJ, Joan Donoghue, had to
Yes,
go
and
on
many
TV,
other judges disagreed with her.
had to go on TV
The
to
American
explain
judge who
Let
worked
him
that
speak.
the ruling did not define there was a plausible genocide.
Actually, the
She
other
had
judges
to go on
disagreed with her.
TV to
Selective
refute
quoting.
the lie. The only reason for you to make
The
that
ICC
lie,
chief prosecutor
the
called for an
only
arrest warrant, Eylon.
whose arrest
right,
warrant
all right,
claims
all right.
were
Did the
based on
ICC
lies.
All right, this is not helping.
lies.
We are not able to hear what anybody is saying. We're not able to hear what anybody's saying. You are both talking at the same time, and I'm talking at the third time. So let's stop this.
Convenient.
I have a question for each of you before we pivot, which I want to ask you if you can answer without attacking one another. And I'm also curious to see if you can do it in under 20 seconds, because we're just curious. Each of you came to this debate, and by your decision to participate, we saw on social media that both of you were attacked by members of your own camp for being even on the stage with somebody who's holding the opposing view. But you showed up anyway. Eylon, why did you show up? 15 seconds.
Because Iran, the Palestinian nationalists, and their allies are waging a war of misinformation that has one purpose. They want to destroy Israel. And they think it will be much easier to destroy Israel if they convince the world that Israel deserves to be destroyed. A full campaign of the most ridiculous lies to try to convince good, ordinary Americans that when they're ready to pull the trigger and massacre us once more, they should stand to one side and say, well, the Jews had it coming. And I'm not willing to allow that to happen.
You recall the question?
Statement.
Sorry?
Okay, just a 20-second answer.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I believe that what is happening in Gaza, the killing of 16,000 children, the genocide in Gaza is the great moral tragedy of our time, the great crime of our time. And I will go almost anywhere and take a stage with almost anyone to try and bring that war to an end and convince people that the war needs to end now.
And there you have it, folks. Eylon Levy, the human embodiment of a government press release, twisting himself into a rhetoric pretzel to defend the indefensible. He'll tell you Hamas is the sole villain, while conveniently forgetting that Israel's action fueled the very chaos they claim to be fighting. He'll talk about justice, but can't explain why justice in his world only applies to one side. Eylon and his narrative are like a bad magic trick. Wave your hands, distract the audience, and hope no one notices the disappearance of accountability. But here on Zees' political couch, we don't fall for cheap tricks. We expose them. So Eylon, maybe the next time you're here, come prepared with answers that don't crumble faster than the buildings in Gaza. To the audience, keep questioning, keep thinking, and don't let these narratives go unchallenged. Subscribe for more, because we're not stopping until every double standard is called out. See y'all on the next one.